Good evening and welcome to our online viewers. I'm your presenter, Gabriella Don. But before we start the show, we just have a few disclaimers. VOICEIT does not take any responsibility for any offensive language or videos used. The candle you see on your screen is a reminder that we stand in consolidation with all the people who have lost loved ones during the COVID-19 pandemic. We pray for the ones who have lost their lives and for the full recovery of those who are infected. The talk show is for any person or organization to voice their opinion on current affairs. The platform is to share information and knowledge, and the viewers are encouraged to interact and ask relevant questions. Tonight we're speaking to the DA, and our guest speaker is Mr. Roy Jankelson. He is the leader of the DA in the Free State. We're just going to go through his bio before we welcome our guest. He is the leader of the official opposition in the Free State Legislature. He was formerly a lecturer in the Department of Political Science at the University of the Free State from 1995 to 2000. Between 2000 and 2006, he was a member of Parliament, during which he served as a DA spokesperson on defense and safety and security. He also served as parliamentary councillor to the former leader of the DA and parliamentary DA of the opposition, leader of the opposition, sorry. From 2006, he served as member of the Free State Legislature, where he served on committees responsible for agriculture, environmental affairs, and economic development and rules and order. He was Free State DA provincial chairperson between 2004 and 2006 and provincial leader between 2006 and 2012. Roy has a BA degree, 2 honors degrees in political science and English, a Master's of the Arts degree in political science, and a PhD in political studies. He continues to do part-time research and still makes academic contributions in accredited academic journals and as a member of the Academic Advisory Board of the Department of Political Science and Governance. He was the lead witness in the Zondo Commission interrogation. He is the DA constituency head for the Maluti constituency in the Free State and has served on the DA's Federal Council since 2002 as the founder member of the party on the Federal Executive Committee between 2006 and 2012 and the Free State Provincial Council and Executive Committees since 2002. Roy was also the DA Free State Provincial Campaign Manager during the 2014 national and provincial elections. Whew, that was a mouthful. Before we go to our guest speaker, we're just going to look at a slideshow of Roy. Welcome, sir. Your bio is a mouthful. Before we get started and head to our questions, we just want to look at a video about the DA.
In June 2020, we celebrate 20 years since the DA was formed. The DA's roots go back as far as 1959, when Helen Suzman's Progressive Party was formed to oppose apartheid. The Progressive Party paved the way for the Democratic Party, which played a vital role in negotiating South Africa's democratic constitution. In 2000, the party evolved into the Democratic Alliance out of a need to build a strong opposition to protect and strengthen democracy. Since its formation, the DA has grown substantially, from an opposition party to a party of government. From humble beginnings to having over 20% of support in national and municipal elections, the DA is the only party with a record of non-racial electoral growth and is a viable alternative to the ANC. Over 7 million people live in DA-run municipalities across the country and in the top-performing province in South Africa, the Western Cape. The DA-run Western Cape has the lowest unemployment rate of any province. More children stay in school to matric here than anywhere else. And the DA-run Cape Town has been voted top tourist city in the world for 7 years in a row. The DA takes its role of protecting our hard-won democracy seriously. It was the first party to call for a comprehensive rollout of antiretrovirals when AIDS denialism was at its peak, be it through a 7-year court battle to get access to spy tape evidence that finally has Zuma in court in connection with fraud, racketeering and money laundering charges stemming from an arms deal in the late 90s, to the DA's relentless pressure in Parliament that eventually saw the establishment of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into state capture, and the battle to pull back the curtain on corruption at state-owned enterprises such as Eskom and PRASA. The DA's efforts has finally seen former President Zuma pay back the money wasted illegally upgrading his Nkandla home. The DA is doing everything possible to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic, making constructive proposals for how we can get South Africans safely back to work, protecting everybody's constitutional rights by launching a court case to stop government's ban on NGOs distributing food to desperate and hungry people, and challenging irrational lockdown laws like the use of discrimination when deciding who gets relief in this difficult time. In all communities, we are fighting to protect every South African's right to own property and feel safe in their own homes. Today, and for the last 20 years, the DA has been at the forefront of democracy, working hard to make life better for every South African.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Gabby, and I can see you're a lawyer because you started off with a disclaimer in the beginning of the show. But I also want to also add my voice to the condolences to people who've lost loved ones during the COVID pandemic, and also we share your sentiments with those who are currently ill. I hear that our hospitals are full in the across the Free State, and this is something of huge concern to us as well. But I look forward to your questions this evening. I hope there's still time left because you spent a lot of time on my bio, so I hope there's a lot of time left for questions as well.
Let's hope we can get through everything. But just to start off, can you give us some background on the DA, your manifesto, and specifically what sets the DA apart from other parties?
Well, the DA... let me start off by saying the Democratic Alliance is a party of alliances. Throughout our history as a democratic alliance, and it started off years ago with Helen Suzman, who I think everyone knows was an anti-apartheid spokesperson. She was one of the lone voices in Parliament who spoke out against apartheid, one of those people who went and visited Nelson Mandela when he was on Robben Island. One of the few was able to do that. And the party grew from there. It became eventually, through various alliances and coalitions, became the Democratic Party, and later in the same way became the Democratic Alliance. So we're a party of alliances. But the party has never lost its basic principles. Throughout our history, pre-94 and post-94, the Democratic Alliance has been a party of constitutionalism. We're a party that believes in democracy, a party that believes in the rule of law, and we're a party that believes in social democracy, which also implies that we believe in a market economy, but we believe there must be a social net as well for those people who are vulnerable in society, who are unable to look after themselves. And we haven't changed. We've been that throughout. Some of our core principles is we're a party, we believe in an open, opportunity-based society for all. So we believe a society must be open, that we must have a transparent government. Government's job is to create an enabling environment for economic development. We believe that government's job is to create opportunities for people by creating this environment in which investment can come into the country, because it's not government's job to create jobs for people in society. They must create an enabling environment for other people to come in, yes, big companies to invest in society, and they must create the jobs. They must create the careers for people. And we always say that we support the social grants, but some of your social grants shouldn't be a permanent thing. You know, it should be just a stepping stone to something else. So that is basically what the DA believes in. It's very important as well that for all, we say an open opportunity society for all, because we believe everyone should enjoy the benefits, yes, that our society in South Africa, the resources that South Africa has to offer, and especially the resources of the Free State. It's very sad for us to note that over 1 million people in the Free State, and we only have 2.9 million people in the province, but over 1 million are dependent on social grants. Now, social grants, as I said, are important to support people who are vulnerable. But we would prefer people to be working. We yes, would prefer people to be able to buy their own houses, to afford the bonds to pay off houses, and to be in permanent employment. And that is our vision for the Free State as well. We have 678,000 people economically inactive in this province, and that is a concern for us. And a large reason for this, why so many people are unemployed, why so many people are destitute in the Free State, is because of corruption. Corruption makes poor people poorer, and I'm sure we'll discuss that later on during the show.
Definitely. Before we go on with our questions, we're just quickly going to look at a video of the former leader of the DA, Mmusi Maimane.
Mmusi Maimane has promised to revive the dream born during the fall of apartheid 25 years ago. The leader of the Democratic Alliance Party told thousands of supporters on Saturday during the launch of the campaign for the 2019 general elections.
The South Africa I see today is certainly not like the vision of the South Africa I saw in 1994. It looks like a dream that we all shared. It doesn't look anywhere near it, and it looks like we are moving away from it. What was a dream is fast becoming a nightmare.
After a critical review of the reign of the African National Congress, Maimane reaffirms their determination to ensure that the property rights of black South Africans are respected.
There is an injustice in our country which lies at the heart of the land question. As the DA, I want to commit this to you. We will ensure that more black South Africans are able to own land through secure private property rights all across South Africans. Only the... Can you understand?
Long considered a white party by the government, the Democratic Alliance denied the allegations in 2015 by placing My Money, a young man from Soweto, at the helm of the party.
So, sir, a lot of South Africans still believe that the DA is a white party. Would you say that over the years there has been a purge of black leaders in the DA? Or put simply, the question is, doesn't the DA believe in black leadership?
No, I think the Democratic Alliance has had a number of leaders, black and white, in the past, and leaders come and go. The party remains constant. The values of the party, as I said, pre-1994 and post-1994 have remained unchanged. A lot of the values that were articulated by Mmusi Maimane, our former leader in the video, are still the values of the Democratic Alliance today. And you'll find that across provinces, you've got black provincial leaders, you've got white provincial leaders. Our former leader in the Free State, who decided not to continue as leader, was a black leader. I took over as a white provincial leader, and I don't know who's going to take over after me. It might be a black or a white person.
Yes.
And the issue with us is, it doesn't matter within the DA what color you are.
Yes.
We measure people on, as Martin Luther King said, on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And that's very important for us in the DA. And it's interesting that our opponents always fall back on the race card to try and paint us into a racial corner when we start asking the difficult questions. We've noticed, for example, in the legislature, that when we start talking about corruption, the asbestos contracts, the Vrede, the ANC immediately come back with this racial attack, trying to paint us into a racial quarter to try and justify perhaps their positions on certain things. The problem is that when you repeat a lie long enough, it tends to become the truth. And that's why we must constantly show people in our actions as a Democratic Alliance. The face of the party, when we have meetings, you'll see, is a diverse group of people. There's not another political party in this country that has the diversity of the Democratic Alliance. And I want to use an example. When we elect our leaders, we elect them on what we call fitness for purpose. Race isn't part of that. Although we want to be diverse, we don't look at you and say, because you're black, you will get this position. Because you're white, you'll get this position. We look at that which people bring to the party. And we've got such talented people across the party. We've got at national level a young leaders program with a diverse group of young people every year that are being trained. Last year we started in the Free State a future leaders program for young people across the province of various race groups who we're grooming for leadership in the party. So we're not attached to leaders. We're a party that is attached to principles, to values, and a vision for a better South Africa for all our people.
Yes. Okay. Can we just go to a second video of Mmusi Maimane?
Recent comment made by Mr. Leon referring to me as an experiment are both offensive and dehumanizing. I think it cannot be that in 2021 you can refer to a human being as an experiment. I also
Can you comment on the fact that Mr. Maimane was simply an experiment that failed? And if so, is that the basis on which you appoint your leaders in the DA?
No one in the Democratic Alliance is an experiment.
Okay.
People are appointed at a specific time on what they bring to the party. And as I said, the values of the party don't change. Individuals might change, leadership, face of the leadership might change, but our values don't change. But just on that whole issue of an experiment, no one who's currently in any leadership position in the Democratic Alliance has called anyone an experiment. It was a former leader who's now a commentator who made that comment in a book that he wrote, and if one perhaps reads the whole context of what he said, the picture might be different. But it's got what he said has got absolutely nothing to do with the DA. What we've seen in this public debate is of two former leaders of the DA fighting with each other over what one of them said in a book. And that, to my view, has got nothing to do with us. We're doing our job as a political party. We're doing our job as politicians. And if former leaders want to fight with each other out there, well, that's their issue. John Steenhuisen, our current leader, has already said, that's got nothing to do with him, this fight. We don't necessarily agree with that, obviously, but let the former leaders then sort it out amongst themselves.
Okay. So, speaking about the Free State in specific, can you give us an idea on where the DA has improved on service delivery?
You must just differentiate between two things. Firstly, that we have an ANC government in power,
Yes.
and it's the government who are responsible for service delivery in the Free State. Secondly, what's very important is any opposition party's job is to hold that government accountable for the manner in which they govern, for the manner in which they deliver the services. And that is where we, as an opposition, can improve services, by holding the government to account, by looking for those areas in government where they are failing our people, by exposing that and encouraging our people in a democracy that when you're unhappy with service delivery, when you're unhappy with your government, that it's your job to change that through the ballot. And I think we have contributed to service delivery through being an effective opposition at provincial level, being an effective opposition in the various councils where we have many councillors serving across the Free State. So I think that's our contribution. But you cannot hold an opposition party accountable for potholes, for example. We don't have the ability to give instructions to officials to go and fix potholes. The governing party and the government have to do that. That is their responsibility. But what we will do is in our councils, in the provincial legislature, put pressure on government and say, why are roads like that? Go and fix those roads. That is our job as an opposition. I think it's important that people understand the difference between a governing party and parties in opposition.
I understand. So are you telling me that we can't go to our local councillors here in the Free State to complain about service delivery and what we need in general, because it's not their job and the ANC is the ruling party?
No, I think it's very important that you do raise issues with all councillors, because whether you're an opposition council or governing party council, you are still in the council.
Yes.
But as I said, our job is to be the link between the people on the ground and their issues and the council. So what we do effectively is we go to the council, we go to the provincial legislature, we raise those issues there on behalf of our constituents, on behalf of those people who have complained to us. And that's a very important job that we as politicians have to carry out.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, once we've done that, it remains the responsibility of the government to actually go and deal with those issues. And of course, we do put pressure on government when they don't perform. There are ways of doing it. You can see, for example, I'll give you an example of the Vrede Dairy project, where the 80 beneficiaries who've been sidelined. For 8 years, they haven't been part of that project. Government has spent hundreds of millions on that project with no beneficiaries, which means it doesn't have a reason to exist. And we took that issue to the public protector on behalf of our citizens in the Free State, firstly because of the money that was wasted,
Yes.
but secondly also on behalf of those 80 beneficiaries. And after many years of fighting, we eventually got the public protector to say those beneficiaries must be included.
Yes.
But just to add on to that, what we're also doing is we've initiated court proceedings on behalf of those beneficiaries to force government to include them in the project, because no project can exist without beneficiaries. So that's another way in which we've served our people, by holding government to accountable and then forcing government to actually do things on the ground. And in some cases we've been to court to force government to actually do what they're supposed to do as a government. But unfortunately court cases are very expensive, so we have to choose those very carefully, because and it drags on for a very long time. But I mean, we've picketed before outside council buildings, we've protested before, obviously in a peaceful manner. We don't burn things when we do that. That's also one way of voicing your dissatisfaction. But the most important thing is to stand up in the legislature, to look the Premier and your MECs in the eye and say, these are the issues that constituents have raised with us. These are the things that you need to fix. This is how we suggest you can fix it. And in many instances, we do get positive results as a result of that. In some instances, you will get situations where, especially if someone needs medical care, yes. I've intervened on behalf of people who've needed a hip operation. We write to the MEC and say this person is in terrible pain, they need assistance, and we get that assistance. Some of my colleagues in the legislature involved specifically with health issues, education issues, issues relating to bursaries, are constantly interacting between those people on the ground and the provincial government, the MECs, the heads of department, to try and get assistance for those people. So that's a very important task that we have. And we often find that people come to the opposition because they know that we will fight for them. Very seldom will an ANC councillor or an ANC member of the legislature go to the legislature and fight over a service delivery issue, because they will be exposing their political heads, who are the mayors and the MECs yes. and the Premier. So we're the only ones actually who are fighting for our people. And a democracy is as strong as its opposition. And at the end of the day, it's not the opposition or the governing party's responsibility to ensure that we have a strong democracy, but the voters. If you are unhappy with potholes and you vote for the governing party that's responsible for the potholes, don't blame anyone else. Look in the mirror and say, I did this to myself. If your children and grandchildren are unemployed and you voted for the ANC, look them in the eye and say, I did this to you, because I voted and continue to vote for the party that creates this environment of unemployment. So I think it's time in this country that voters start taking responsibility for their votes. You can't complain and burn things and then dissociate yourself from it. You must take responsibility for the way in which you vote, and you must hold yourself accountable for that. You know, burn your own house because you voted for the ANC. Don't go and burn a library which belongs to everyone else.
Yeah, I hear you. So there's no denying that South Africans have become sort of accustomed to the language of the ANC, because the ANC since 1994, it's all we've known. So keeping this in mind, a lot of people believe that having the DA as the ruling party will automatically bring back apartheid. What message do you have for those people?
Well, I have a very simple message. We govern the Western Cape. We govern 34 municipalities across the country, and where have we brought apartheid back? Apartheid is never going to come back to this country because our people in the country will not allow it.
Yes.
And they will vote that government out that even speaks of bringing it back. And I mean, we as a political party have one purpose, and that is to govern this country. And every single political party should have that purpose. If you don't have in your vision a vision of governing, then you're obviously not a serious political party. Then you're an interest group or something like that. But we have one purpose, and that is to get as many votes as possible so that we can govern this country. And apartheid, bringing back apartheid, I think the whole notion of it is quite ridiculous. It's not going to happen. It's those people who use those terms and speak like that. And if you actually believe that could happen in this country, then you must be very gullible and very foolish.
Yes. So a lot of South Africans are looking for an alternative to the ANC, and obviously the DA is the strongest candidate behind the ANC. But before that can happen, a lot still has to change. So does the DA actively have discussions regarding their shortcomings?
Regarding the shortcomings of the ANC?
The shortcomings of the DA.
Of the DA?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Just as much as we have discussions with the ANC about their shortcomings, the Democratic Alliance is a democratic party, and we believe in internal democracy as well. We believe in internal discussions, open debate within the party.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when you debate vigorously in a party, not violently, vigorously, it's often perceived as infighting. We don't actually have fist fights like the ANC do. We don't burn each other's property like the ANC do. But we do have debates within the DA, and a lot of our policies are the result of these debates, and any debate is very positive, and we feel that those internal debates are crucial for the growth and development of the Democratic Alliance, because every input that you get during these discussions on policy actually allows us to bring in new ideas to grow our policies and our mission statement in the DA.
Yes. Can you maybe respond to the coalition reports with the ANC? Is coalition with the ANC even an option? Because we've seen a lot of people weighing in on the issue, and former leader of the DA, Muse Mamani, said that, or he commented that this is a clear sign that the DA is not confident of a win in 2024.
Well, we've always said that we are willing to work with individuals who share our vision for South Africa.
Okay.
There are certain basic principles which we're not going to compromise. We believe in constitutionalism. We believe, as part of the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights that includes also property rights for individuals. We believe in the rule of law. It's very important for a democracy. We believe in a market economy with a social net, as I mentioned previously, and we believe in good governance and sound service delivery. And any individuals who share that vision, we are willing to talk to. So if you say you're willing to talk to individuals, often people say, oh, but now you want to form a coalition with the ANC. Well, there are reformers perhaps in the ANC, individuals who don't share the vision of Ace Magashule and Jacob Zuma, who believe in constitutionalism, who believe in those values that Nelson Mandela stood for in 1994. And it's important to also have discussions with those individuals and say, how can we together then build a better future for our country? Because it's not about us as individuals or just about the party. It's about South Africa.
Yes.
It's about the Free State and doing what's best for the Free State and South Africa. And we cannot wear blinkers when we're doing it and say, okay, we're going to exclude you because you belong to a certain group or a certain organization. We must look at those individuals and say, what do you bring to the party? You know, what are you bringing that can add value to the lives of our people in the province and the country? And that's how we view it. So if there are reformers within the ANC who share that vision, we're not going to be narrow-minded and exclude them just because previously they wore an ANC badge. As I said, the DA can only grow if we bring in voters who were previously voting ANC. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to grow, because the majority of voters are ANC at the moment. So obviously we want to convince as many ANC voters as possible to change their minds and come and join the DA. And some of them might be leaders and not just normal voters within the organization.
Understood. We're quickly going to go to a video about protesters damaging statues and buildings.
a shield, Gareth. This is what they've been using to come forward. There's a rock coming right towards us. Sorry, Gareth.
All right, if you have just joined us 7 minutes after 9 o'clock.
Responding.
All right, Jason, I'm going to ask you to move to a safer position. If you've just joined us, this is Newslink.
Come outside, Gareth. They're now...
So South Africans are looking for a plan to fix South Africa, and voters are tired of parties who constantly shine the light into the hole, like showing us how massive our problems is, and we need a party who can shine light out of that hole. Do you have clear policies and clear plans on how to get inclusive growth and move people from a place of poverty into opportunity?
Yes, and where we govern, we've actually done this very effectively. Because you must remember the Democratic Alliance is not just an opposition party, we're also a party of government.
Yes.
So our policies which we offer to voters have been tested where we're in government, and we take what's good and we shed that which isn't working and is bad. So we're not just offering voters a theoretical alternative. We're saying to voters, listen, we do govern, and we've got clear proof through our results. You just have to go to places where the DA governs and leave the Western Cape out of it. Just go to Midvaal in Gauteng, which has been hailed as the best run municipality in Gauteng, and others have said even in the country and in Africa. It's a small municipality. The DA took over there. It was in disarray like most ANC-run municipalities are at the moment. With our mayor there, Bongani Boloy, we were able to build up that municipality, improve the infrastructure. Large companies are now investing in that small municipality. Heineken built their head office there. Now that municipality has the lowest unemployment in Gauteng. And that is the DA policy in action. So if I can sit for an hour and discuss our theoretical policies with you, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm saying is just go where we in government and go and see for yourself what we can offer our people in the country. Last year, for example, when all the provinces except the Western Cape were shedding jobs, the Western Cape DA-run government was able to create an environment where 120,000 new jobs were created in that province during lockdown.
Wow.
And everywhere else jobs have been shed. Yes. So I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And I think there's clear blue water between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance, and our voters should be able to see that. And they should be able to, if they're wise enough, make that choice at the polls.
Okay. We're quickly going to take a short break and listen to Brooke Hill. Then we'll take questions from our viewers online. Welcome back to our online viewers. We're going to take questions now. Our first question is from Gregory Werner. The Heidedal quarry has been a contentious issue for many years now. Many Heidedalers have lost their lives in the unfenced and unsafe mining quarry. We have lost yet another life as recent as 2 months ago. This quarry is situated in a DA ward. What have the DA done to safeguard the quarry? Are the DA slow to act because the owners of the quarry are white? Or is it a matter of Heidedalers are not important enough to act on this matter?
The loss of life is always tragic.
Yes.
It's very sad, especially when it's preventable. And I believe that when there's an open quarry like that, it is preventable if you take the necessary precautions and measures to safeguard it and prevent, especially children, from going there. And children are always drawn to water, and it's unfortunate when deaths actually occur. Heidedal is a DA ward, but as I mentioned previously, we do depend on the municipality to implement that which we request. And our councillors in the area, I know, have been involved for a very long time in dealing with various issues, including the quarry. They raise those issues regularly with the municipality, and unfortunately the municipality has been very slow to act on these issues. But obviously I'm not a councillor in Mangaung, so I'll have to raise the issue with our councillors there and get more details on that. So I'm not going to sit here and try and spin something for you, but it is a serious concern and I will raise it for them. But I just want you to bear in mind that we want to win as many wards as possible so that we can take over this municipality and specifically to fix those kinds of issues. But if you win 10 wards and they're city wards, then you're still not running the municipality, and we want to run this municipality so that we can fix those things. But it is an issue, obviously, that I will raise because it's a very serious one.
It is.
And I want to thank the Gregory Werner for raising that issue with us.
Our next question, Roseanne Solomon. I'm still waiting for the DA to get back to us regarding the flooding in Bloemsig Avenue 3 years ago. They just promised to help and nothing has been done. We had floods every year in January. Please practice what you preach.
Okay.
No question.
There's not a question. Thank you, Anne. That's another issue, obviously, which she's raised, which is legitimate, which I can raise with our councillors as well. I just want to mention that a lot of the problems in the municipality are due to aging and collapsed infrastructure. And we've been putting a lot of pressure on the municipality to put money aside and budget to deal with these issues, and a lot of the sewage running through streets in municipalities and in our towns, and the lack of stormwater is also stormwater drainage is also as a result of that. And one of the problems is that money does come from national infrastructure grants to improve infrastructure, but there's so much corruption that by the time the money gets to the ground where it's supposed to be utilized, a lot of it has been plundered across our municipalities, and that's one of the biggest issues. That's why we say corruption makes poor people poorer, and it has a huge impact on people's lives on the ground. And I think people must start realizing that, and that's why I keep saying, you know, you can't vote for the same party and expect a different outcome. So if you keep voting an ANC government into power, you're not going to get a different outcome.
Yes.
And we want to get into power so that we can fix the quarry, so that we have the access to the resources to be able to deal with the water that's running down the road. Because politics is about selling your vision to people on the ground so that you can get a legitimate power base, so that you have access to the resources, that your policies determine how those resources are allocated, how those resources are spent. And that's what we want to do as a DA. We want our vision that we're implementing in Midvaal, in other 34 municipalities across the country, to become that reality in Mangaung, and so that the people can benefit, like other municipalities where the DA governs from a DA-run municipality. And I don't think there's any doubt in the minds of any South African that the DA does run municipalities better. The top 5 municipalities, according to the Auditor General in the country, are DA, all DA. And if you take how many we actually govern compared to the ANC, then I think you can see that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. But these are very important issues which Mr. Werner and Mrs. Solomon raised, and I will definitely take them up with our caucus after this.
Thank you so much. So I think we also need to speak about the elephant in the room, COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously a global, a global pandemic, and the reality is that people are dying. And we do commend our president for how he's been able to manage the situation thus far. However, we've seen that legally you have, or the DA has challenged some of the restrictions put in place. What would you have done differently?
I think the most important thing is that we've said from the beginning that we must balance lives with livelihoods.
Yes.
So to shut down whole industries, the tourism industry, for example, to close down guest houses, things that hasn't assisted. It's shed a lot of jobs. And at the end of the day, you know, people die because of poverty as much as they might die because of COVID. People die of hunger every day in our country. So we have to balance livelihoods and lives, and that has been our approach from the beginning. And that doesn't mean that we have to compromise on the necessary precautions that need to be taken to prevent the spread of COVID, which might include some punitive measures as well if you don't wear your mask in public, if you don't take the necessary precautions, because we've said from the beginning that it's very serious. The initial lockdown, the first couple of weeks, we said we support the president, but the purpose of that lockdown was so that our health services can get their house in order, can put the provisions in place that are necessary to deal with this pandemic. But when the lockdown was lifted, we realized that government never used this time to actually do what they were supposed to have done. They actually wasted that time. So I don't think the COVID pandemic has necessarily been managed very well by President Ramaphosa. He's just spoken to the country. Every now and again he appears on television and he speaks to the country about what he's done and what he plans to do. And you've got his ministers behind telling him what to say from behind the scenes, who might have vested interests in the tobacco industry, the illegal smoke, the illegal tobacco industry, etc. There's a lot of allegations around that. So one questions the motives as well, why certain decisions were taken regarding smoking and alcohol and all those kinds of things. But the most important thing is, look at our rollout of vaccines in this country. Zimbabwe is doing better than South Africa. Our neighbors are rolling out vaccine, and we seem to be dilly-daddling with this thing. And then there's the corruption, which has manifested itself within this COVID environment as well. These allegations, even in the Free State, are where funds allocated for dealing with the pandemic have been channeled to individuals and dubious businesses. So even within this environment, which is so important that our country manages correctly, we still have this corruption. And I would have thought that at least during this pandemic, even those people who are corrupt would have shown a little bit of patriotism, and we haven't seen that. But to say that this pandemic has been managed very well, I wouldn't agree with that. And the fact that our hospitals in the Free State are full, and that our people are still not getting the vaccines on the ground, that's a very serious issue for us.
I just feel like people come from a perspective that no one has ever dealt with a pandemic like this, and I don't think plans were in place for us to deal with this. So just a little pat on the back there for Cyril Ramaphosa.
Okay.
Thus far.
The pat on the back that I'll give Cyril Ramaphosa is when the pandemic, even before it started, when we saw this happening abroad, the Democratic Alliance consulted experts, and we looked at the best practices all over the world, and we developed a phased approach.
Okay.
That which we have now, level 1, 2, 3, 4, that was the DA's approach to the pandemic from the beginning. So a pat on President Cyril Ramaphosa's shoulder, yes, he actually took the DA's policy regarding that and our research which we've done on that, and he actually implemented it. So yes, he did that at least correctly, and I wish he'd implement more DA policies. Our country would be in a much better place.
But we've also seen that COVID-19 has become a scapegoat for many of the problems in South Africa. Do you feel that that is fair, or is it just decades of failed policies that led us to this state?
I don't think COVID should be used as an excuse all the time. And I mean, I'll give you an example. My son had to get a license recently, and we went to various testing centers across the Free State, and there's just a sign that says closed due to COVID. Or you'd phone them and say, why can't we get a specific service? Why can't we get an appointment for a driver's license? COVID. So I think COVID has been abused a lot and used as an excuse not to deliver certain services across the province and across the rest of the country as well. In the past, we've seen government using various excuses. I mean, 27 years into democracy, and we still have a lot of disparities which are based on race in our society as well, and challenges that we have to deal with. But you cannot forever, for example, blame apartheid for corruption and for poor services and things that you've had the resources to be able to fix, but because you plundered it and stolen it, they're not available anymore. And what I've seen now recently is that COVID has become the new scapegoat. So every time you mention something that's not happening on the ground, it's because of COVID.
Yes.
And a lot of our people are sitting at home, I think sometimes unnecessarily, who should be doing work on the ground using COVID as an excuse. And I think that's very unpatriotic to do that, because at the end of the day, we love our country. We want what's best for our people, all our people in the country. And we must show that we also have a conscience during this thing, and we must use every resource at our disposal to fight this pandemic and to ensure that we actually beat it at the end of the day.
Okay. Can we quickly go to a video of Helen Zille?
The DA is the kind of organization where our values and our principles are quite clear in our constitution. So there's no debate about those. They are there in our constitution. When we translate those values into policy, we have very tough policy debates. But when there's agreement, everyone swings in behind them. And I'm not going to be the leader. I'm going to be the background coordinator, pulling all the strings together, making sure that the interface between the politicians and the professional staff works very well, making sure that all the systems, processes, structures of the DA mesh properly, that everything does its thing as it's supposed to in a well-oiled machine. That will be my job. So there's absolutely no reason.
A lot of people believe that Helen Zille is actually still the person running the DA and just pulling the strings from the background. What message do you have for those people?
Firstly, I want to say that Helen Zille has contributed greatly to the political development of our country and of the Democratic Alliance, yes. And I have huge respect for her. She was one of the reporter who, during the apartheid era, exposed the murder of Steve Biko. And as leader of the Democratic Alliance, she's contributed greatly. She's contributed to the governance, the development of DA governments, because she was the first mayor of the DA-run Cape Town government. She actually managed a very difficult coalition there as well, so she's quite an expert on coalition governments as well. So she is an excellent administrator, and her current position within the Democratic Alliance is the head of our administration. So she was elected as the chairperson of our Federal Council, which also makes her chair of our Federal Executive, and she's responsible for policy development, for the implementation of policy across the party, for the administration of the party, for the operations of the party, the election campaigns, etc. It's a huge job that she has, and you need someone who's got huge experience in administration, which she has, a very good track record in administration. But then she has her lane, and that is her lane. John Steenhuisen, as leader of the party, has his lane, and his lane is to give political leadership, to be the face of the party out there, to articulate the policies which the party develops, the values of the party, and that's what a political leader does, and to provide that leadership when necessary. And I think John Steenhuisen is at this stage doing that excellently, and I think Helen Zille at this stage is in her lane also doing a very good job. And between the two of them, we have a well-oiled machine going into this election campaign. But we also have a governance unit within the DA, and that's a difference also between us and the ANC, that we actually hold our governments accountable. At every Federal Executive Committee meeting that I attend, we have a report from our governance unit, and they actually monitor DA-run governments. So the party holds them accountable, because our brand is good governance, and we're not going to allow a municipality here or there to damage our brand. So we, as a party, also take timeous interventions to ensure that our people on the ground, where they fall under DA government, benefit from the DA-run government. And that's very important as well, and that's also part of Helen Zille's job, which is helpful because she has such experience, not only as an administrator, but also administrator in government, as a former mayor of one of the biggest cities in the country. And you'll remember she was elected as the best mayor in the world at one stage. And also as a premier of a province. So she has a lot to offer, and I think she still has, in the coming years, she still has a bit of time ahead of her to ensure that she continues to offer that, and that we as a party, but also as a country, continue to benefit from those skills which she has and the experience which she has.
Okay. Can you explain the process of appointing councillors? Are qualifications necessary? Because a lot of the times we see that these councillors don't have effective leadership skills.
It's a very good question, because that's one of the things that differentiates us from other political parties. We don't have a cadre deployment policy. So we don't look at your credentials within the party alone or within a faction of the party, and that determines whether you become a councillor or a member of the legislature or parliament, we actually advertise. We open up our processes and say, if you believe in our vision, if you believe in our values, if you believe in our principles, apply. And we've had people applying who haven't been part of the party or have had minimum exposure to the party before, who have been elected and who've actually done very well. But the process that we follow is people apply. Yes. We have online applications. They do online tests, which we also test whether they are aligned to the DA values and our principles. So we actually give them a bit of background on that and then test them on that. Where we have incumbent existing councillors, they get evaluated twice annually, which we call a P-pass, and those scores which they were also added to their online testing scores. We look at, then they also do interviews. They go through an electoral college process in many instances, and then also a selection panel process where they sit in front of a selection panel. They get interviewed by individuals, and that's also a very important thing, because our selection panels are not just DA people. It's often people from the community. Many of our panels have lawyers, have community activists sitting on those panels, evaluating those individuals who apply to be DA councillors. And then, if they're successful, they become candidates. And then, from candidates, they then eventually become councillors if they are approved by our provincial and federal executives. So they go through the selection panel process, they get a score there as well. And the scores at the end are computer generated. So I can't interfere. I, as a provincial leader, am not allowed to sit on any panel. I'm not allowed to be involved in any of these processes except at the end at the provincial executive, where I get the list. Yes. And we all discuss them there. But then it's computer generated, because the scores in each situation are generated by the computer. Each person sitting in the panel scores are put into the computer. So it's very difficult for an individual to manipulate the process. And then the second thing is we have a criteria called fitness for purpose. And fitness for purpose includes experience and expertise. Activism on the ground. And an activist is someone who sees an injustice and feels compelled to fix that injustice. And yes. I always say that DA people should be activists first. Whether you're a leader or just a normal member or a councillor, you must be an activist first if you want to be part of the Democratic Alliance. You must see that injustice and feel compelled to fix it. And then we have geographical spread, because some of our municipalities include various towns. And you might not find all of these characteristics. Diversity is also important. But you might not find all of these characteristics in one individual. But at the end of the day, we say that electable caucus must at least be fit for purpose. So it's a very different process to other political parties, and we've actually used technology very effectively to ensure that human factor is excluded, and especially where that human factor might be used to influence the process for a specific faction or to benefit a specific individual. And in most instances, we get it right. And where we don't get it right, we have mechanisms in place to correct it. So we've had people who've been elected, and 2 months after the election, we said, listen, you didn't do your work during the election campaign. Obviously, then you're not going to do your work as a council. We remove those people. And there's that accountability as well. And in the Free State, we have a lot of people who are elected as councillors, and most of them are very effective and do very well, but we've got a couple of individuals who we replace shortly after the election or during that 5-year term, because yes. we do evaluate them constantly on what they bring to the various caucuses, but also to the community as a whole.
Okay. Can we quickly look at a video on gangsterism in Cape Town?
Was cut short by the gang violence that rages across Cape Town's poorer neighbourhoods. He leaves behind his mother, his girlfriend and 11-month-old son.
In moments like this.
The circumstances surrounding Cameron's murder remain murky, but deaths like his are all too common. Last year, 159 murders were reported in Cape Town gang areas, an average of 3 a week.
Majority of the funerals we go to is because people like died by a gunshot or a knife wound. We hardly ever go to somebody that's died of old age, of cancer, of diabetes or something.
So after looking at that video, the obvious question has always been, what is the plan? What is the plan with gangsterism? Because it seems to be an ongoing thing and no one's doing anything about it.
Well, gangsterism is very rife in the Western Cape, but it's also spread to the rest of the country as well. We have, in some of our small towns in the Free State, we have gangs of young people terrorizing our communities. It is a very serious issue which is linked to the socio-economic circumstances of people, but also I think the decline of the family as the basic structure in our society and the decline of family values within our societies. And I think there our churches can play a very important role as well as in inculcating those values back in our society. But it appears as well that we have a general decline in morality in our society. And our politicians who are supposed to be setting the example, especially our most senior politicians in the country, former presidents, for example, who make themselves guilty of crime are not setting a good example for our young people. Now, I've had some experience of this gangsterism because when I sat on the committee in Parliament for Safety and Security, we visited some of these areas in the Cape Flats, where it's very rife and it's very sad. And one of the schools that we visited, the parents were telling us it's an awful experience for their little children to go to school. And we're talking about grade 1 children who have to go to school, because they said these little kids have to go through the FBI gang. We said, what is the FBI gang? And FBI stands for Female Body Inspectors. Now you can imagine a little child in grade 1 to primary school children having to be exposed to that type of thing before going to school. And many of the gang leaders there have taken over the role of the state. So they have soup kitchens. If there's a dispute between people, they go to the gang leader, the warlord basically, and they decide on the disputes. And they filled a vacuum where the state has been missing. And you can ask, why is the state missing?
Yes.
And I can tell you why. Because we found that there's a deliberate attempt by the ANC government at national level to under-resource the police stations in the Western Cape, and especially in those communities. If you go to those police stations, they don't have enough vehicles, they don't have enough personnel. And the reason for that is because our national ANC government want to destabilize the DA-run government in the Western Cape. But we haven't just sat back and said, this is fine, we're going to accept it. What we've done in the Western Cape is we have the most effective municipal police force in the country. We use drone technology. We've got cameras up in communities, but unfortunately our municipal police are mostly able to do visible policing. They cannot actually do the investigations and things. Only the South African police services are able to do that. So we have put measures in place, even firearm detectors. So if someone shoots a firearm, those detectors detect where that firearm, in which area it took place. You can mobilize your cameras where there aren't cameras. We've got drones that fly over and actually photograph those areas. You can actually follow cell phones. If there's a firearm shot, you can follow the cell phone that quickly disappears and later go and see if that firearm through the ballistics was able to be, or you're able to trace it to a specific crime. So we do have those measures in place, but unfortunately those cannot replace an effective criminal justice system, which is a national competency, not a provincial competency. And our criminal justice system in South Africa is failing our people, because you'll find that besides being victims of crime, our people are also victims of a failed criminal justice system. So we've had instances where people have been raped, they go to the police station, there aren't the necessary rape kits to do the necessary tests and things, and then if they are fortunate to be able to go through that process, then they sit in courts, the cases are postponed, they're intimidated. So they don't only become victims of the crime, but eventually become victims of our criminal justice system. The cases are delayed for often years at a time, and this is unfortunate, and we have to fix that. It can't stay like this.
Definitely.
But at the end of the day, we need the political will to do it, and we found that our criminal justice system was deliberately undermined to allow certain senior people in government to try and get away from their crimes. So they've deliberately, we saw during a time of Jacob Zuma where people were put into positions to undermine the system and not to build that criminal justice system, because if you undermine the system, then you can't convict the people or do the investigations and the corruption cases and things. So that's unfortunately what happened, but we have seen some improvement in recent times, just with the mere fact that some of our politicians have been arrested and appeared in court is already sending out a better message to people to say we're not going to tolerate this.
Okay, speaking about politicians, can we go to a video of members in parliament?
You see, some of us don't know English properly.
Can
and then we
Madisha,
can only come and say,
Honorable
hong,
Madisha,
hong, 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 like that.
Honorable
member.
Madisha,
Yes. Hong, hong, hong.
Honorable Madisha,
Hong, hong,
Honorable Madisha.
That's the only thing that she knows.
Honorable Madisha.
Yes.
Clearly from the video, we see that members are totally divided in parliament and they have no respect for each other. Why can't politicians put the interest of South Africans before their own selfish needs?
It's very unfortunate that our country has become this, and that our seats of democracy have become shows where people tune into Parliament live for some entertainment in the afternoon to see politicians perform.
Show.
It shouldn't be a comedy show. That's where the important business of our country should be carried out. That's where decisions are taken that affect the lives of our people. And when I was in Parliament between 2000 and 2006, I served under Speaker Frini Janwala, who was the first speaker after 1994. And she was a short lady, but she demanded absolute respect from her members. You didn't talk back to Frini Janwala. If she took a decision, you accepted it. But then Frini Janwala was totally fair, and she was non-partisan in her decision-making as well. So people respected her and they respected the institution. Now, the Speaker plays a very important role there, the presiding officers, in ensuring that there is respect. But even they sit with difficult positions if you have individual members who disrespect not only the decorum of the House, but the institution of Parliament. And by disrespecting the institution of Parliament, you're disrespecting the Constitution and democracy. And in fact, you're disrespecting those voters who put you in that position. Yes. Those guys are getting huge salaries. We're talking $1 million plus, perhaps annually. Some are, depending on which positions they hold in Parliament, because the higher the position there, the more they get. So I think voters must start holding politicians accountable for their behavior in Parliament as well. That if politicians behave in a certain manner and act like children, then you must decide, do they actually deserve your vote? Because we don't want delinquents and children in Parliament. We need people who are serious about the issues that affect our people's lives on the ground. And we've, the Democratic Alliance, have referred a lot of the issues to the Ethics Committee in Parliament to try and deal with the situation. But it is very unfortunate that you have individuals and even political parties who are sitting in Parliament who appear to have no respect for the institution or those people who voted them into those positions of authority.
Yes. Our last video for the night on corruption, can we quickly go to that?
Show us one black who's black capital.
Can you just explain to us what we just witnessed in terms of you being attacked?
We outside the regional court in Bloemfontein today to ensure that justice is served for Ace Magashule during his trial this morning. And while we were outside the court, a group of ANC members who were obviously intoxicated, you could smell the alcohol and dacha on them, attacked us. I was manhandled, pulled down the street and also kicked by these individuals. But fortunately, we managed to get away.
Obviously, corruption is rife amongst our politicians. We've seen Jacob Zuma, Ace has been suspended. What message do you have on this?
Well, firstly, Gabby, I want to say that I'm pleased there's no wind blowing in the studio, because I see in that video that there's definitely wind blowing outside the court when we took that video. But I want you to repeat the question. I was thinking of the wind.
No, I was asking your message on corruption amongst politicians. And also, now that we know that Ace has been suspended, what does the suspension entail? Does he still get his salary, benefits, all those things?
Well, we need to be tougher on corruption. We need mandatory sentences, very rough sentences for politicians. A 15-year minimum sentence if you're found guilty of corruption.
Can I just interrupt you
Yes.
there? If Zuma, for example, has to be sentenced, let's say 15 years, wouldn't it be the same as him checking into a hotel here in Bloemfontein? Will he get treated the same as someone, a nobody who committed murder?
Well, in a constitutional democracy where no one is above the law, in that ideal society, that's the way it should be.
Yes.
And if the DA was in charge of national government and running the criminal justice system, we would ensure that no one is above the law, that everyone is treated equally, that in all George Orwell's terms, all animals are equal and no animal is more equal than another animal in our society. But it's a very serious illness in our society, and it's become entrenched in our society. And unfortunately, the ANC brought that sickness into our society, and they're the ones who've entrenched it within our government in society. And if you're not going to hold senior politicians accountable, then what respect will officials have for the resources that they have to work with every day? And they're working with billions of rands every day. So we must show people that we're tough on crime by holding those senior people accountable for that. And if it wasn't for the Democratic Alliance, I don't think Ace Magashule would probably be in front of the courts, because we drove the issues of the asbestos contracts in the Free State. My colleague Leona Kleinans was one of the key people in that whole process. We went to court to try and prevent the payments. Unfortunately, we lost that court case, and the payments were made.
Yes.
Then we went to the public protector. When we got the public protector's report, we went and laid the criminal charges. So hopefully we played some role in ensuring that at least Ace Magashule and Oli Lamlele are held accountable for their crimes, and to a certain degree perhaps it also had an impact on his current situation within the ANC. Now, it's interesting that the ANC took so long to act, because it's not just him. There are a number of senior people in the ANC who are implicated in corruption, who've been charged with corruption. So although the ANC took this decision a long time ago that they will suspend people who've been implicated in corruption, they're only starting to implement it now. So it appears that sometime they went and scratched out this coffin of morality in their back garden. They dug it out, they took it out, displayed it, and they'll probably go and bury it again later on. But it's interesting because about 40 of the National Executive Committee members within the ANC are very controversial in that they're implicated in corruption. So when your senior committee that runs your party itself is compromised, then you have a serious problem within your political organization. And it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks, because Ace Magashule and Jacob Zuma have said, listen, they've got a lot of information about other members within the ANC, and I think what's happened there, they're all sitting with guns pointed at each other's heads. Definitely. And if one person pull the trigger, it's going to be bam, 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 and they're going to start falling like skittles. And I think that's the fear that Cyril Ramaphosa has. But remember, I know Ace Magashule for many years as leader of the opposition during his premiership, and as leader of the party also during his premiership in the legislature. And Ace always has an ace up his sleeve, so I'm waiting to see what he's going to take out next. And it could be that the next thing that he takes out is something that's going to have serious implications for other individuals within the party, including Cyril Ramaphosa himself, they've also made allegations that he might be involved in some irregular activities too. So it's an interesting chapter in our history, and it's going to be interesting reading to follow this whole process going forward. But don't underestimate Ace.
Yeah. In conclusion, please tell the viewers why they should vote for the DA.
I think I mentioned it previously. The DA is not just an opposition party, we're a party of government. And where we're in government, you can see the clear blue water, and that's why we have our blue shirts, the clear blue water between the governing party and the Democratic Alliance. Where we govern, our residents benefit from a government who are dedicated to service delivery, who ensure that there are accountable institutions in place to hold people accountable for that service delivery. We have, where we govern, the lowest unemployment rates as well, because we create an environment for where people want to come and invest in our DA government areas. So what I want to tell people is it's not really a choice in South Africa anymore. You've got an alternative government who have a sound track record, and you have an ANC-run government that is failing our people. So if you continue to vote for the ANC and not for the Democratic Alliance, then you must take ownership afterwards for that decision. Then don't complain, as I said, about the potholes, the sewage running through the streets and through your yards and everything. Accept it and take responsibility, because I think it's very important in South Africa that voters start taking responsibility for their decisions at the voting station. If you put your cross next to a party, then don't complain when that party fails you later. And what we're asking people in the Free State and in our municipalities, give us a chance. Take us on APRO for 5 years. If we don't deliver, vote us out. That's what we're saying to people. But give us that chance. You've got nothing left to lose in the Free State. Most of our people are unemployed. Many of them are destitute. Our services have collapsed completely. Our financial structures in our municipalities have collapsed. What have you got to lose by putting a DA government into power and giving us the opportunity to try and fix this? And I know it's going to be a huge challenge, because the degradation, the destruction of our institutions, our municipalities and our provincial government departments are such that it's going to be very difficult to fix. But we're up to the challenge. Give us an opportunity to fix us. Give us those budgets. Let us implement our policies on the ground using those resources. and give us 5 years. If you don't see an improvement, vote us out. That is your democratic right. Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. And thank you to our online viewers for joining us tonight. On our next show, we have the EFF Provincial Chairperson, Mandisa Makasini. Good night and stay safe.